Welcome to another episode of our Founders Podcast. In this show, where I interview proven founders and industry experts who share their stories, strategies, and insights to help you build, launch, and grow your business, we'll be talking with Alex, who is a co founder of sharewithmarvin. Alex Fetwell, the CEO of sharewithmarvin, a social media management SaaS startup redefining the digital landscape. As a father of nine, Alex blends personal insights with a background in global design and fintech. Partnered with Mike Blameris, a tech guru with a history of answer consulting, and their accidental venture, Marvin, emerged from a client project at Kune Consulting. Marvin also simplifies the social media management, allowing businesses to write once and publish across all the platforms. And Alex and Mike collaboratively, nearly 8 years, bring a unique synergy to their startup. And this platform not only ensures content compliance, but also offers analytics for comprehensive performance and insight. So I hope you enjoy the show. Alex, welcome to the show.
Hi Ash, thanks for having me.
Great. Do you have a favorite quote or something which inspires you? Would you like to share with us?
Can I swear? Shit happens.
we're all
just
we're,
ha-
we're all adults, no worries.
just have to roll with it, as I suppose
Yeah.
is where it happens, and that's largely how we work. We work in that agile way to basically just deal with whatever life throws at you. So yeah.
Yeah, I like that. Simple, straightforward, and you just have to go above it. I mean, as a founder, being in founder's shoes, you have to make sure that you not just solve the problems, but also understand them deep enough that you're capable enough to, split them into small chunks and then resolve them one by one. Well, great. So tell us about Share with Marvin and what does the product do? Who is it for? And what's the main problem you're helping to solve?
So the main problem that we're solving at the moment is really the lack of time that people have to create social media content. There's an ever-growing list of social media platforms that are out there. They've all got different rules. They've all got different content that they can support, character limits, all this type of thing. And particularly as a founder myself, I run a lot of our social media content. It takes a lot of time to create that content out there. And what Marvin does is it really automates that creation of the content
Mhm.
via what we're trying to achieve, a sort of write once, publish many approach. So you can create a single piece of content, and then currently in a manual manner, you can create different versions in there. But eventually, as we integrate the AI into the platform as well, it will take care of that. So the first feature, for example, that we're going to add will be around the use of Twitter, and it will be able to take long form content that you might create for something like LinkedIn, and
Mhm.
then it will automatically summarize that into a tweet for you and link it through to your LinkedIn content. So it's about putting that content creation out on an autopilot to save you time. And where Marvin really operates is that above the funnel activity. So it's not a prospecting thing once you get into the sales cycles and so on. It's actually just getting your word out there, and
Mm.
it supports a whole raft of social media platforms. I think we've got 9 in there at the moment that we currently support. The intention is that we'll add at least another 10 within the next 18 months. um, Marvin has been built really to support a whole range of businesses. At the
Mm.
moment, if we look at what we're building as we move towards, hopefully getting some seed funding, and then towards a Series A, we're focusing purely on the UK market for the
Mm.
SME sector, and it's looking at the challenges in there that they've got around creating content. um, and in terms of the personas we've got, we've got sort of single founders, small businesses, and also we've got another persona in there around the types of businesses that might be out on the road. So, your tradesmen, landscape gardeners, for example, where they've done a fantastic job, and they want to be able to show their skills and what they've achieved to prospective new clients. So we've actually developed a mobile app alongside that that will enable them to, in the same way as you can by the desktop, to actually just add those images, send it out to social media, and connect with more potential customers.
Us,
Sorry, go on, Matt. Go on, Ash.
Yeah, no, I was just wondering when you mentioned that if you're creating a post which is either for LinkedIn or Instagram, and then Marvin automatically understands the gist of it and then potentially creates something which fits into the terms and guidelines of usage of Twitter or X, and then put that piece of content into X. I'm just thinking that loud in my head that it takes me so much time to do that manually, and Marvin is doing all on autopilot. So that's wonderful for
Yeah.
me.
So we've got the business rules in there already. So
Yeah.
as we add each platform, LinkedIn, Facebook, whatever, we add
Mm,
in the background all the rules that are associated with that in terms of, character limits. Does it require an image? What size images will it support? If it's a
mm,
video, how big can the video be? All these types of things. So all of those rules are coded up within Marvin.
mm,
And as you go through and you create your content, it will automatically check against what you've added and you're proposing to post. And if it's not suitable, then it will switch that channel off and say you can't use it for that particular content that you've created. So the
mm,
easiest one that we always use when we're explaining to people about how this works is, for example, the Twitter example, where you've got
mm,
a 280 character limit in place. Once you go over 280 characters, it ceases to be able to support Twitter within that version.
mm,
Now, what we've also built in there is what we describe as alternate versions. So it has the same intent that you're writing out about, but
mm,
it's different content. So I might create a tweet that is, within the 280 characters that's on the same topic as my long form content, and it's within there, and it's all published again as part of that piece of work, that piece of content that's going out. Now, the
mm,
reason that we've done that is as we go down the line and we start to build out our analytics, then you'll be able to look at the total sort of relative and sort relational impact of your post. So you can see,
mm,
how did that long form content behave? How did the Twitter content behave? How did your Instagram content behave, and so on? And how did it all come together in terms of the outreach?
mm.
And that then over time will then start to factor into the AI content that we'll then be producing. So it will, be aware of what's going on LinkedIn for you, for example. So which of your hashtags perform best? Which of your words does it perform best with an image? And it will put all of that content on autopilot. Now
Indeed.
that's way down the line, but at the moment
Mm,
we're focusing on the creation aspect and building
mm.
that out so that we can start to get the body of content that's in there. And we've laid the foundations in the background so that as posts are created, we can actually start to suck in those analytics over time and start to build that out in the background as well.
Got it, got it. And I would love to understand more about the features and how it could help somebody who is just starting up, or somebody who already have a brand present on the social media, different social media platforms, or someone who has an idea about it, or want to grow more. But before we talk about that, let's talk about where the story begins. Where did the idea for Share with Marvin came from?
So I'd love to take full credit for the idea, but it actually came about as a result of a client that we're working for,
Mm,
who wanted a database. That was all they originally wanted to actually create their social media content into, but they weren't interested in the actual publishing or anything like that. They intended to actually take it and publish it out themselves and handle all that. And
mm,
when Mike and I looked at it, we said, well, this can be so much more. You know, it's not just a database. If we've got all that content, we can do all these clever things with it that we've got on our roadmap.
mm.
So when we responded to the request for that quote, we actually said, "Well, look, we can build this as a SaaS for you in partnership, and you know, we will retain those rights over the code. Obviously, you get a significant discount, and we'll build it out." And they love that as an idea. You know, we're doing it on a very cost effective basis for them. They get access to our development team, and we get access to you know, well, the ability to build out this business.
Mm.
The which, you know, we've done a number of months of development now with them, and that's been incredibly successful. You know, we're sort of super agile. You know, we gave the client a working version within 6 weeks of getting the project brief. You know,
Wow.
from
Wow.
literally no code written to
Mm,
here's the first version that's starting to implement the security and things like that. And we now deliver every 2 weeks. We do a sprint demo back to them. We show what features we've added, and we work with them collaboratively to produce a roadmap. Now,
mm.
obviously, their funding in a lot of ways constrains what we can do because, you know, we've got a bigger book of things that we would like to spend on. So that's one of the reasons that we're now starting to look at raising investment against the business as well, that will sort of increase the throughput of what we can do, and add some of the other features that we'd like to prioritize over some of the things that they're currently focusing on. But yeah, it. I would love to say it was deliberate, and we set out when Mike and I sat down to actually create this as a business. But it was one of those. This is, you know, right place, right time, opportunities. We can make this work, and you know, the stars aligned, and we set off down that road.
And this is the beauty, isn't it? This is like the one of the best ideal scenarios if you're a founder and if you already have a customer who is
Mm,
willing to, pay you for XYZ, and then willing to be a partner with you for development of something which you would like to develop in parallel. And that's fantastic. I mean, like, I have interviewed more than 30 plus founders on the show, and very few of them said that we had customers on the first day of our launch. Whereas in your case, you already had a customer before you even, conceived the
yeah,
idea to the basics. So
yeah,
that's
absolutely. You know, and they're going to bring a number. You know, they're a fairly large multinational company that we're working with.
mm,
And they're going to bring a significant number of users onto the platform from the outset that they can start out with. So that, you know, that gives us that boost. And obviously, in terms of when we're building the software out, we're getting that real time feedback from customers that's so important. You know, they're saying, yes, we like this, no, we don't like this, and it gives us that ability to iterate so quickly through and solve real problems in there. So
mm.
you know, it's been a fantastic way to build the product out, and you know, and strongly urge people, if they can get into these types of partnerships, that actually, you know, it can be beneficial for everyone.
Great, great. And when you had this epiphany, did you? I'm sure you looked into the market and you looked around at what there are the products and what was going on at that time, and what did you see from your research that encouraged you to move forward with this idea?
So we kind of came together. Our client that we got had already done a significant amount of research, which was why they were
Mm,
looking at building out. And they had a number of gaps that they were looking for. One was the number of channels that a lot of the tools that are out there in the market support. So they, in
mm,
particular, want to break into the Asian market, and you know, some of the social networks that are really popular over there. Mainstream tools such as Hootsuite and so on don't support that currently.
mm,
So, you know, this was a big thing. They also want to do an integration with their CRM system and be able to sort of assimilate that data that's coming through from the content into their CRM, and then use that for, you know, email publishing, website content creation, this type of thing, which none of the tools in the market do. So these were the two big drivers that they had. What we we'd already been looking as well for our other business around social media tools to see how we could look to boost our own presence out there. And the big thing that we found is that they all replicate the same problem. They all don't deal with this write once approach. They all make you write a post for each different content that you're going to go out to.
Mm,
And that doesn't save you any time. So you end up paying this subscription fee for the sort of feel good factor that I'm doing it in a tool. But if you look at the sort of stats that are out there, most people aren't using social media tools at the moment anyway. They do them directly into the platform. So they'll write on LinkedIn, they'll write on Facebook, they'll write on Twitter because the native editing tools are all free. So there's
mm,
no point for you to go and pay for these things to get no benefit. And that's where we then started to see that we could be a bit different because we actually do feel that we offer a real sort of game changing value add in this space, in that you can write a single piece of content that then
mm,
can go out to however many channels you want to publish it out to. And that really is then a compelling reason for people to want to look at Marvin. On
mm,
top of that, what we also noticed when we started to research them was that a lot of them are really, really expensive. And that's sort of prohibitively expensive for smaller businesses that are starting out there. Now, our,
mm,
our entry level plan only comes in at £35 a month,
mm,
which, the amount of time that we're saving and the amount of additional content that you can get out there with such a small subscription, we think is really good value for money.
mm,
But a lot of these businesses, because they don't see that they've got to the sort of mass market numbers that are possible, they're having to charge fairly hefty revenue fees, sorry, subscription fees in there,
subscription fees.
uh,
Yeah.
which is not great. Most of these tools have, if you look at Hootsuite's got about 15 million users globally,
Mm,
which is an enormous base. They blow everything out of the water. They're almost, I think they're probably about the same number as most of the top 50 tools combined in terms of user base.
mm,
So they've really cornered the market. But they were founded in 2008. And if you look back at how many social networks were around in 2008 that people were using with any sort of regularity, it was just a handful.
yeah. Yeah.
And what they've then done is they've replicated sort of cookie cutter style. Right, new social networks come on. Right, we'll bolt them on. Right,
Mm,
okay, and they've just bolted them on and solved the problem in the way that they were doing. But now, when you've got, God knows, I mean, there's probably 15, 20 that are really popular in the UK alone.
mm,
That that type of replicating the content and wasting your time creating it in that space is just an enormous amount of time to spend, which is why we then thought, well, we can tackle this differently. And
mm,
that really then came about for right from the start. Even when we started to put together the architecture for the product, we said, well, this has to support multiple channels from the
mm,
outset. We have to make it so that it's really quick to plug them in. It has to be really simple to configure them for users. And we feel that we've achieved that. But the benefit is now we can actually add a new social network in about 2 weeks. So if you look back at like TikTok when that blew up, for example, particularly off the back of the pandemic, for the majority of tools that are out there to be able to then support this publishing via their framework, it was a significant undertaking. Whereas for us, it's integrated into this multi-channel framework, add in the business rules that go with it, and you're away and we can publish out to it provided the API is available. So we've
mm,
we've really sort of future-proofed the solution that we've put together in such a way that as these new networks come along, and they will, you look at threads that came about off the back of Twitter and things like that.
yeah. Yeah.
People are always looking for new ways to engage with people in a social media manner,
Mm.
and we've sort of future proofed ourselves to do that. That provided there's an API, we can actually integrate with it.
Awesome, awesome. And I would love to talk more about how Marvin is different from other social media automation, or in other words, tools which help businesses or influencers to increase their influence. But before heading into that, I would like, can you take us back to your roots and share with our listeners about your upbringing, childhood? How did your early experiences shape your journey and eventually led you to become a entrepreneur you are today? For example, what
I'm
are
not
the
sure.
influence?
I'm not sure it did. I didn't do anything in this space when I was a kid.
Oh, okay.
I always thought I was going to be a footballer. I was on the schoolboy forms at my local professional club. I was
Mhm.
going down that route, and then I picked up a few injuries. I broke my leg at 19, um, which I, you know, quite openly didn't deal with very well. It was quite a nasty break, and didn't really cope with it. And it sort of spoilt my university in many ways. I was doing a maths degree because I didn't really know
Mm,
what I wanted to do, and um, and then sort of stumbled into my first job was actually as an actuarial student. I was good at
mm,
maths. They earn a lot of money. This seemed like quite a good career to go into. Um, and very quickly, I learned that I hated that. The sort of structure, the continuing to
mm,
study, this sort of way of working didn't really work for me. And I ended up joining a small, I suppose you class them as a scale up these days in Leeds that was um, again in the actuarial space, but they had a lot of systems involvement. So they built their own calculation systems, they built their own databases and things like that, and that really got me into programming and development and business analysis and these types of things that I've then focused on through my career.
mhm,
And gradually, I drifted away from the actuarial work. I then did more and more BA work, and eventually moved into the consulting space. And I've done that for God, too long now, probably about 15 or so years, maybe a bit longer actually, getting old. Um, and for the last eight, I actually worked in a couple of consulting roles in there, and also running a design team globally. So, I'm used to building products, but that was where I met Mike, and we've been friends for about coming up 8 years now. Both from Yorkshire, we were both in London at the time.
mm,
Um, you know, we struck off a connection. We've gotten really well. We stayed in touch after I left the company that we were working through together, and we started to then build our own consulting and software business, which is
mm.
the sort of the route into Marvin. Um, but that's really the background. I didn't do computer science or anything like that when I was at school. It was, you know, maths, physics, chemistry. I did the ones that interested me, but computers kind of stumbled in through the course of a career.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. And talking about Mike, do you have any idea about how did he had any influences from his childhood for being an entrepreneur, or um
Um, Yeah, so well, certainly on the tech side, Mike has been more structured. He's worked in technical and development roles and things like that, and technical
mm,
consultancy. So a lot of the input that he brings from that technical side, putting the architecture together in that CTO role, he
mm,
he's been doing that for a very very long time. He's worked at significant enterprise scale, so
mm,
he knows what we're shooting for. um, I suppose in terms of the entrepreneurial routes, Mike's a massive risk taker.
mm.
He climbs. I think he's due to row the Atlantic at some point.
Wow.
He's a massive risk taker. Uh, if anybody ends up talking to him, ask him about his love for helicopters and getting rescued off a mountain by one.
Oh.
So so he's in that space. I've always um, I've always wanted to do things differently. I like to solve problems in a different way. So I suppose that's probably the natural entrepreneurial side of me that, you know, it's solving things differently. Now, I'm
Mm.
not conventional. As you said at the outset, I've got 9 children. Not many people, want to take on that sort of role and responsibility. So I'm not conventional, but it all sort of brings together in that melting pot how I sort of deal with things.
Awesome, awesome. And understanding more about the product, should we take a hypothetical situation, because a lot of listeners to our podcast is first time founders, some people who are either working on some side hustles, people who are already got some funding, people who are attending some accelerator programs in London, etc., etc. And what I think how we could relate to them is by providing them this kind of a use case. Let's say, for example, there is a founder who who started a startup, and now that founder wants to promote or market or educate the audience on different social media platform. So he was searching online and he stumbled upon Marvin. So how does Marvin will help that founder from start to end, and then how is it different from other alternatives available online, so that we can give them an idea and then potentially bring them on Marvin?
So I think I'll answer the second part first in terms of your questions. How is it different? Well, the difference is really around that write once and publish many.
Right.
So the other tools that are out there that you'll come across, they effectively ask you to do the hard work yourself.
Mm,
You've got to stumble through, find out, character limits, all these types of things, and basically create that content and run into what the brick walls of, that image won't work. Um, you know, it's too many characters, these types of things. So Marvin's more proactive than that. It
mm,
it has those rules codified, and as you create your content, it automatically monitors it for you. So it tells you whether you can write to that platform or not with what you've written.
mm,
And as soon as you breach a particular rule, so going back to the Twitter example, on the 281st character, Twitter channels that you have within uh, your Marvin repository, it gets switched off. You can't publish that content to it because it's too long to go to that. If Elon is listening, it would be fantastic if he could extend the API to support the premium accounts, because at the
mm.
moment we can't do that. We've got the ability to add the premium accounts, but the extended character limits that come with those, we can't do that because Twitter's own API doesn't support that at the minute. So,
Ah,
so that's
interesting.
really quite frustrating. Big plug. If Elon's a massive subscriber to your podcast, then
Mm,
that'd be great if he could extend that out. So that's how we're different in
mm. I,
terms of
I'm gonna cut.
the
I'm gonna cut this bit and put it on X, and I'm gonna tag Elon on it.
nice, nice. And then when he shuts our account down, then that's all my fault. So in terms of your founders and how they use it,
Mm,
really what we're saying is the best way to get your business out there is to create content.
mm,
People stumble upon content. We've been we've been starting to look at TikTok, for example,
mm,
and the level of views and engagement that you get on a channel like TikTok on content that you just wouldn't expect is just phenomenal. So
mm,
in this world now, one of the best things that you can do as a business is get yourself, sort of elbows out, get to the front of the queue, and make people aware of your business, even if it's just that they know you're out there. You don't even have to be on the sell. It's just, this is what we do, and people have got that awareness, so that then when they are facing that challenge, um, you know, it can then they then know to start to look for you, and they can come to you. So that all takes time. And as new founders, if you're trying to fight on three, four, five, however many social media networks that are out there,
mm,
that's a significant amount of time when you're doing everything in your business. Now, what we've got in Marvin, and the other tools out there have got this type of functionality, but you've got to write it multiple times, is we've got things like scheduling tools. So
Mm,
if you've got a quiet time on a Sunday evening, you can actually go in there and you can go line up all your content. You can get all that created, and you can have that drip feed out to your audience across the week.
mm,
We've got we've got a recurring tool. So if you've got say promotions that you want to push out every day onto Twitter, or you might have brochures about your business, or anything that you might want to post out to customers multiple times just to
mm,
keep that at the forefront of their mind. We've got this recurring functionality that you can put in, and you can set up a schedule for however you want to push that content out. So
mm,
it's all around that saving time is where we're at. You know, it's it's write once, so that saves you time, and then
mm,
use our tools to achieve even more time savings. And we will actually increase that as we go. So, I've talked about the auto creation of the Twitter tweets off of long form content, things like that. We will have AI in there. We're starting over the next few weeks to integrate ChatGPT prompting directly into Marvin, so that you can just go in and give me an article or give me a post about this, and it will create the body straight into Marvin for you. Because
mm.
what we found is that a number of our users are using ChatGPT, and they're going, give me this content, copy paste, and they're copying it into Marvin. Well, with a relatively few lines of code, we can actually do that, and you can do that directly into Marvin, and
Instant tool.
and
Yeah.
yeah, and it saves you seconds here and there. But if you're a founder, that's a phenomenal thing. Just saving all those bits of time, you add that up over a week, and actually, it means that you can do more with your business and hopefully capitalize on the business that you generate off the back of being more prominent.
Oh, definitely. I mean, I spent so much time on creating reels and Instagram posts and LinkedIn posts individually on Canva. I do pay for Canva also to get the pro version features, but then it takes so much time for me to create it there and then individually pick it up, put it on
Yeah.
the schedule for all the platform. So it's straightforward. It's a lot of value for me, so I can definitely see the value here. So, okay, so
Sorry, just on
let's.
that point. So I'm
Yeah.
glad you mentioned Canva, because that's actually on our roadmap as well. So this is another piece of feedback that we've had, that,
Uh-huh.
that a lot of businesses are creating content directly into Canva. So
Mm.
over the next couple of iterations, we're hoping to integrate Canva directly in as well, so that
Oh, nice.
you can create Canva content that would then feed through into Marvin, and then would be able to leverage our publishing framework. So, all of these things that businesses are doing, we're
Mm.
seeing Marvin as a place that actually joins all that up, and just saves time.
Oh, indeed. That would be great. Imagine every morning I'm logging into Marvin account. I am creating the graphics on the Marvin with Canva integration. I'm creating on the content in terms of text with the help of Chat GPT on the Marvin. Potentially, I'm uploading some videos, adding captions and everything on Marvin, and then literally click a button with schedule, and that's my week long schedule is done.
Yeah,
It's amazing.
that's essentially where we're aiming for. And down the line, we've
Mm,
got roadmap items around AI image generation, so we want to be able to plug that in. We've already developed an integration framework that will allow things like, for example, Shutterstock. If you've got a Shutterstock account and you want to bring those images in, we're starting to look at how we can access those more readily within Marvin, so that you can bring those in, again saving time.
mm,
We've got the GIF libraries that we're integrating at the moment, because obviously GIFs are really popular in terms of social media
definitely.
content. So all of these things that businesses want to do, we're looking to bring them in there. And because we have this real sort of agile way of delivery, as we get customer feedback, we're then factoring that into what we're then building out,
Mm.
and starting to develop the things that businesses want.
So one thing I wanted to understand is I understood that there's a lot of features around text and images. How does Marvin deals with media content, especially with videos? and what kind of features right now it offers, and what is in the pipeline?
So videos at the moment is probably one of the least developed areas, if I'm honest. We have the ability to add videos in there, and it will support them, publishing out. So we can publish to TikTok, for example, with the videos that are in there. Um, Down the line, in terms of roadmap, we've got YouTube integration directly, and we've got YouTube Shorts integration that we'll be supporting as well. There on the 12-month roadmap for adding in there. In terms of the tooling that we'll add, that remains to be seen. We want to take feedback from customers. If you look at TikTok, for example, with the tools that are in there, do we want to replicate that content, or is it actually better to say, well, if you're doing these things in TikTok, are we
Mm,
better taking that somehow and giving you easy access to that video that then means that you can send that out to your other social media channels? And we haven't got that fully worked out, being completely honest at the moment. We're wanting to see how customers actually use the platform before we
mm,
add these things in. But the general sort of premise is that if we can save you time, we will within Marvin, and we will
mm,
allow it to go out to all your social channels that are supported.
mm.
That's sort of the vision that we've got of how we're delivering it.
Okay, okay. So in terms of the product itself, then how far you are with, let's say, how far you are with your MVP, or is it already been done? Do you have any customers in the pipeline, other than the sponsored customer you had before? And where you are, I mean, I understand that from the team size, you're just yourself and Mike, right? Or you have more team
No, no,
members, right?
we've got a dev team as well.
Okay,
So
all right, perfect.
we're just on. I think we're just at 10 people now that are working on this globally.
Okay.
Um, in terms of the journey, we've got what we consider sort of a true MVP now, probably a little bit
Hmm.
richer than an MVP. So we've got 9 channels in there. You can publish out to all of those channels. We've got the business rules for them. We can, publish, schedule, recurring, all this type of functionality that's in there. We've got repost, we've got delete, we've got um, cloning articles so that you can reuse content. So we got the basics of what a business would use,
Yeah.
and I've been dog fooding that myself. So I use that now for doing all of our social media content, and that's been a massive time saver for me. In
Hmm.
terms of number of clients, we're hoping that we might just tip over 50 users by the end of the year, with
Hmm.
the rate that we're acquiring them. So that would be good. We are an early stage startup, and we're recognizing that. So at the moment, we're not focusing on revenue generation, which many people will go, that sounds crazy. But actually, it's more important for us at the moment to get the feedback, understand what customers really want, and get that true market fit of the product. So,
Mm,
for example, at the moment, we've got a promotion that's running that says, right, okay, well, if you want to use Marvin, you can have it free until the end of March. We might
mm,
choose to extend that, but at the moment, there's absolutely no charge, no restriction on any of the functionality that's out there. You can get an account from us and start using Marvin and tell us what you like, tell us what you don't like. So that's the focus at the moment. Obviously, once we get funded, fingers crossed, any VCs or angels listening, we'd love a chat.
mhm,
Um, then it becomes a different question because there has that pressure on there. But at the moment, for us, it's really about getting that market fit and
mm.
getting something that really solves business problems. And we're pleased with that. We've got something at the moment that does solve a problem.
Mm.
It solves that time crunch that certainly founders are going to face.
Awesome. Okay, great stuff. So we have the minimum viable product. You're looking for some feedback from the end customers at the moment. You have a good you have a number of developers working on the product, etc. So tell us more about, um, obviously once you have more users, you have more feedback, you will be reflecting or addressing these feedbacks, and maybe potentially creating more features, adding more level of potentially security, but as well as more robust features. But what currently you have coming, um, in Marvin as features which is already there, already approved in your product backlog?
So in terms of what we're building out at the moment, we run roughly to sort of a 12-week plan,
Mm-hmm.
broadly, of things that are committed. So we have an absolute commitment over a 2-week sprint. So the
Mm.
work that's going in there, um, we we commit to that, and then 12 weeks we're sort of loosely, this is what we'll do. Beyond that, it's who knows, it's down to absolute prioritization.
Mm-hmm.
In terms of what we've got in there at the moment, we're bringing another channel online. So WeChat will be online very soon. So that will
Mm-hmm.
start to tap into the Asian market. Um, what else have we got? We've got the start of the AI work. So we've got natural language prompting for titles and body using ChatGPT.
Mm-hmm.
We've got some work around URL shortening, so that character saving, things like that, so that can all be done in there. We're starting to
Mm-hmm.
work on the auto creation of the Twitter versions that will be in there. We've had some feedback around um, previewing of links, so you'll
Mm-hmm.
see, like, if you use like the Twitter app, for example,
Yeah.
you post a link in there and you get a preview. So
Or
that
the
will
preview.
be
Yeah.
added. Yeah, so we'll be adding the link preview in there. I think that's going in this iteration, actually.
Mhm.
And then beyond that, we're continuing to build out the mobile app. So I think we've only done about, I'm going to say, about 6 weeks worth of work on
Mhm.
the mobile app so far. But we've already got that up and running. I've got the mobile app on my phone. It supports iOS. It supports Android.
Mhm.
So there'll be some work going into that, to continue to build that out, um, as
Will
well.
it be available? Will it be available for users to try it on their phones?
So at the moment, it's not in the app stores. We haven't submitted. So yes, users can use it, but at the moment, it's a case of sending the APKs out, or we deploy it via test flight to
That's right.
users, as early stage
Mm.
users on there. But we're just about at the stage now that we will be submitting that into app stores as well. Um, which, I look at the dev team and I think, well, you've done 6 weeks worth of work on this, and we've got a mobile app that is doing everything that it's doing, and you've built it in
Mm.
6 weeks, and that makes me incredibly proud of a team that have been able to achieve that. But it's a function of the way that the product's been architected. So,
Mm.
we always knew that we wanted to have a mobile app in there, so we built the APIs that would support it. So it's it's all been built in a way that it will scale to hopefully very, very successful levels.
Mm.
Um, and we're starting to already reap the rewards of that. I said about the channels, for example. We can genuinely add a channel in about 2 weeks, which,
Mm.
I don't think of any other social media management tool out there that could bring a new network online in that sort of
Yeah,
time frame.
that's a really, really tight deadline, but it's amazing how architecturally. Uh, so I want to talk more about the CEO side, CFO side of the duties you're doing right now with Share with Marvin. But before we jump into that, would you be able to share more about the tech stack you guys are using to develop the Share with Marvin applications, or you're
Oh,
more
we should have had Mike on for that one.
definitely
I'm not gonna stray because I know that I'll get heckled by him. So
okay?
if I can set Mike up with a separate call if you want to go through the tech
Sure.
stack on there. And at a very, very high level, we've got a microservices architecture. We've got
Mm-hmm.
a React front end.
Mm-hmm.
Trying to think what else we've got in there. We've we've invested really heavily. So we've got, it's built on AWS. It's built on, we've got GraalVM in there, which
Mm-hmm.
Mike can definitely tell you why we've got that in there. But you know, we this is definitely Mike's bag. So
That's all
I'm
right.
going to leave him
That's
to
fine. I just thought you might have know, and listeners are always very interested to know about which tech stack founders are using right now because they want to understand what is in the trending zone right now, etc., etc. But definitely, I'm gonna ask Mike to come on and have a chat with me later at some point. Okay, so let's move towards your CEO CFO side of the duties. You mentioned that you got a customer, you started building the product, now you have some 50-ish customers, you have a big team. What are the things you're trying to do in order to raise funds? Are you going to the venture capitalists or the investors directly? What are the strategies you're using right now, and how is your experience in terms of that?
So we've done a few things. So obviously we did the accelerator, where we
Mhm.
obviously met
Yeah.
with Vantage. So we got involved in that. That obviously gave us a lot of insights into the sorts of things that we needed to do. So we
Hmm.
followed up on all of those actions that came out through the different workshops. We consider ourselves to be investor ready. So
Hmm.
we've got our business plan, we've got our different models and things like that ready and available for um, the conversations down the line. In terms of reaching out, we've got sort of a two-pronged attack at the moment that's going on.
Hmm.
So we're working with a company called Hyman Capital, who are leveraging their network and starting to try and drum up some introductions for us,
Hmm.
to go through that route. But we're also reaching out to angels in the space as well directly, to look at how they might want to come on board.
Great,
So
great. And
that's where
and
that's the focus of my attentions at the moment. Really trying to have more conversations in that space.
okay. And what about, um are you using any outbound techniques or meeting any investors directly one to one locally? Is that something in your pipeline to do?
So we've had a few chats with investors directly. We tended to do them over um, Google or Zoom type calls,
Hmm. Hmm.
because I live out in the country and Mike lives up north. So actually getting in a room initially can be a little bit challenging,
Okay.
especially if it's
Yeah,
only for like half an hour out. And you've got to watch the pennies for the rail costs and things like that.
indeed.
Um, but it's really just doing the hard yards. That's what we found. We get the feedback. For example, when we did the pitch night with Vantage, we had a
Mm,
fantastic chat afterwards with one of the VCs that was there on the panel, and she said she was almost sort of feeling guilty because she said, we've done a wonderful job, totally gets the problem. She'd actually worked at, I think it was Uber that she said
mm,
she'd worked at. And she said, Uber are having this type of problem themselves with being, different geographies and things like that. So she said, totally get the problem, but it's not a space that we invest in. So like,
mm,
frustrating that, we can't sort of tap into those funds there. So when we have the conversations, people get it. So,
mm,
we're very confident that there are the right investors out there that want to help join us on this journey of, you know, helping businesses maximize their social media impact. That's
mm.
that's the vision of what we're doing, and everything that we're trying to do is aligned with that.
Yeah, yeah. And how long it's been, like, since from you started developing the product until date? Is that like a year span or a couple of years?
9 months,
9 months. Okay. And
nine,
you
nine,
have
9 months
recently
from no code, from
9 months.
literally a standing start. 9 months we've spent on
Okay.
building that.
And and your VC approach is started just when you joined Advantage.
Yeah, so we've started reaching out probably over the last few weeks, really. So we're very much
Mm,
very very early in that sort of fundraising round, and starting to build that out. We're attractive to investors. We've got SEIS and EIS available,
mhm.
so there's massive tax advantages to coming and investing with us as well.
Awesome, awesome, great stuff. And I love to go more and more because I'm really enjoying this conversation, but we are limited with the time. So before we head towards the end of the interview and jump into the lightning round, I would like to know more about when you started working on the product. Obviously you have your co-founder Mike with you. Did you face any challenges? Did you actually had a moment, there must have been some valuable lessons learned? If you don't mind sharing, could you reflect on your experience and tell us about one mistake or a setback that you encountered, and along the way that you consider not really a regret, but like a lessons learned? And additionally, what advice would you give our listeners based on this experience?
Um, Probably our biggest challenge that we faced was actually getting the dev team in place
Hmm.
at the outset. We have our own dev center through our other business, and we use our own resources. But the team that were coming on board to actually service that, they were
Mm.
all working their notice periods. So for about I think it was about 6 or 8 weeks at the start of development, we actually had to use freelancers for building the product out.
Mm.
And because there's so much chaos going on, Mike couldn't sit there on their shoulder and literally watch every line of code that they were doing.
Yeah. Yeah.
And what we found is that a lot of the things that they built during those first few iterations weren't built in the way that our team now build them. Now that we've got our actual, you know,
In-house
team
developers.
out there, our in-house development team, and that was probably the big learning for us, that the use of freelancers in that space, that on paper, look, Mike and I certainly are not green when it comes to hiring developers.
Mm.
Um, aren't They weren't at the level that our team now are at. And that was the thing, that if you are starting out, you really do have to be careful about who you're engaging with, and make
Mm.
sure that you're getting exactly what you want. you know just silly things like we had one of the screens, and it had been hard coded to only return 50 records.
Mm.
And you're like, well, why is it being hard coded to 50 records? We never asked for it to do that, but it was built in that way because it was easier to do that. So just frustrating things like that, that you then have to unpick at your own cost. And
Mm.
when it's your own money that's going in there, then that's frustrating, that you've got to rework things like that. So that probably would be my biggest piece of advice, that if you are looking to build anything out, be very, very careful, and have a chat with them.
Right.
Mike and I will quite happily chat with founders around the sorts of things that can do. We might even be able to help with our own development team if that was something that people are interested in.
Mm.
But one of the we've had a few chats with sort of startup businesses through our other business, and that's probably the scariest thing, that you you don't know what you're going to get out of these development teams. So that
Mm.
probably would be my biggest piece of advice. Be really, really careful who you engage, because it can be a very costly mistake down the road.
Yeah. Yeah. And this is not first time I've heard this advice. Even before, when I interviewed other founders, and they always say that if the founders are not technical enough, or they needed some help for developing the overall product, it's always like 3 or 4 times of 10 times they burn their hands with freelancers or offshore developer teams. And then eventually, after very hard work, lots of interviews, lots of conversations, they find the best fits. And then once they find the best fit for the company, for the organization, that's it. It's streamlined, it's flowing as per the architecture and everything. And that's where the best product comes out in the market. So
Yeah,
get your
we've really seen the benefits. We always plan to open our own dev center,
Mm.
and getting the guys in that we've got. They've all got significant enterprise experience. They know how big systems work and how they should be architected and what the expectations are. So even though we're a relatively small firm at the moment, we've
Mm.
got people that have worked at that enterprise level, so they have the standards, they have the control, they have the rigor that you would expect, that you need at that sort of level. But they bring it in, and that's just how we do business, and it's definitely paying dividends for us.
Great stuff. Right. So we should wrap up now. We're gonna go into our lightning round. I've got 6 quick fire questions for you, so just
Okay.
answer them as you can. Great. You ready?
Yep, let's go for
Okay.
it.
What's one attribute or characteristic in your mind of a successful founder?
mm, enthusiasm.
Hmm.
Has to be, because it's hard. I describe myself as a cheerleader a lot of the
Hmm.
time. I've got
Hmm.
pom poms, I've got the mini skirt, and I do rev up the team from time to time just because it's a slog. And I think you've got to have somebody that is prepared to do
Yeah, totally agree. Totally agree. What book would you recommend to our audience and why?
that. I would go for the lean startup.
Hmm.
I think that's got some brilliant concepts in there, and some brilliant real life examples that you can really relate to.
Yeah,
So
yeah,
that would be where I would go. And I think that build, test, learn approach that is such a strong theme through that book. Um, you have to live by it.
yeah, yeah.
So yeah,
I still remember by I think 2020 August or September, I started with Lean Startup, and then I had an opportunity to hear or be in a webinar with the person who actually came up with the whole Lean Startup idea. It was a brilliant opportunity, so totally agree with that. Next question is, what's one of the best pieces of business advice you have received?
people have lives.
Hmm.
Don't don't ever forget that. I can remember during the early part of my career, really sort of pushing people hard. And somebody took me on one side and said, "Look, people have lives. You've got to remember that they're
Hmm.
people. They have challenges, this sort of thing." And bringing that sort of human side into everything that you do. If somebody's arsy with you in a meeting, they're probably having a bad day. They've probably got something going on at home or whatever, and you can't sort of bear grudges. You just got to say, well, people have lives, and you
Yeah,
hope
yeah.
to be treated in the same way.
You have to have an empathy towards your team as well as the customers and even other
It's everyone,
stakeholders.
everyone that you're engaging with. There's always a life that's going behind everything.
Mm,
Even just simple things like, um, paying invoices, for example. If you're a small business, the timing of when your invoices get paid by suppliers is absolutely crucial, because
mhm,
you don't have the massive reserves of cash to sort of ride out the things. If you've got terms in there, you kind of need them to hit when they hit,
indeed,
so that you can manage the cash flow. So, remember that there are behind every founder that's out there. For example, they've got a family to feed, this sort of thing, and it really matters.
definitely, definitely. What's your favorite personal productivity tool or habit?
Um, Personally, I'm terrible with email, so I tend to focus start of day and end of day looking at email, and then
Mm,
beyond that, don't touch it.
mhm,
Don't touch it during the day. You know, my team know if they want me, Slack me, phone me, this sort of thing. Get me in that way, because
mm.
if you're bothering me intraday, you need an answer. I don't want to be holding your job up.
Yeah.
So, yeah, that start and end of day, picking up emails is probably the biggest thing that I do.
Okay. Great. What's a new or a crazy business idea you would love to pursue if you had all the money in the world and all the time available?
Need my Miro board. We've got about 20 of them. One of the ones that I don't think we'll end up building, so I will talk about, is a system called ShopNav that we've coined it,
Mhm,
which is basically allowing customers to get to the cheapest version of their shopping. A bit like, if you put a route in that you want to do via your sat nav, well,
mm,
you give it a shopping list and it works out how to put all that on autopilot and get you to your shopping list for the cheapest way possible. So
right.
I I would like to build that, especially with sort of position of people's finances and things like that. But I don't see us getting to that anytime soon. So if anybody wants to ever take that on and build that, I would be most appreciative.
Yeah, great, great. All right, so there's this is the last question, and this last question it has a twist. This question is actually given to me by my last interview, like the founder I interviewed. So basically, I'm going to ask you that question, and then I would like one question from you so that I can ask my next interview. So the question is, what's an interesting or a fun fact about you that most people don't know? If you don't want to answer that, you need to tell who is your favorite political party.
Um, Fun fact about me. Um, I know how to milk goats, so I can
Okay.
actually I can hand milk. I live on a small holding,
Uh-huh.
so I don't have goats at the moment, but yeah, I can actually hand milk, and something that I have sort of as a hidden skill.
Yeah. Did you enjoy farming, or do you have lots of animals in your farm? Is it like
Yeah, I mean,
something?
we've got pigs, we've got chickens, we've got
Yeah.
goats. So yeah, sorry, not goats, ducks. I was going to say. So we've got a little small hole at the moment for the kids, and
Mhm.
it's a nice escape um, from day to day. Get out
Awesome.
there and fresh air.
Awesome.
Um,
So, what question you would like to ask the next interview from your side?
so I'm going to be cheeky, and I'm going to ask them why aren't they using Marvin for their social media usage?
Okay. And then if they don't want to answer this one, then
They don't want to answer that one. Um, what's the most embarrassing thing that's happened to you in business?
okay, happen in business. Okay, there you go. That's gonna go into my next interview, and the note is done. Great, Alex. Thank you so much for joining me and sharing your
Thanks for having me.
story and unpacking, last year of building this business and some of the ups and downs along the way. If people want to check out Share with Marvin, what's the best way to do that, and how do folks reach out to you?
So in terms of checking out Share with Marvin, we've got a couple of videos up on the address that you can see below my name, so
Mhm.
sharewithmarvin.io. So if you go on there, there's a free sign up form as well. So if you just enter your email, if you would like a free account, by all means, go in there and we can get that set up for you.
Mhm.
In terms of contacting me, LinkedIn.
Mhm.
So, I don't think there's too many Alex Feltwells on LinkedIn.
Mhm.
Um, just connect with me on there, and happy to have a chat about anything.
Awesome. Great. And shout out to all of my network on LinkedIn that please register yourself on Share with Marvin. It's an amazing tool. You can get free until March. Is that correct?
And the end of March, we're doing at the moment. We
March.
might extend it out, but certainly till the end of March, we'll provide free access in there.
Yeah, you all can save tons of money for that. It's amazing. Thank you very much for joining us today and sharing your inspiring journey and the impactful work you're doing with Share with Marin. It's been an absolute pleasure having you on Founders Podcast.
Cheers, Ash. Take care.
Thank you all for tuning into the episode of Founders Podcast. I hope you found our conversation with Alex insightful and inspiring. If you enjoyed this episode, make sure to subscribe to our podcast and stay updated on future interviews with proven founders and industry experts. Stay inspired, stay motivated, and keep building.